What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Atheist Roundtable. We have another great episode planned for the evening. My name's Austin. I'm your host for tonight, and right here, the man,
What up?
Jay Mike, the co-host. How you feeling, my man?
I'm great, man. I'm doing awesome. I wanted to say really quickly, there's a huge influx in my TikTok inbox recently on message or just advice and from Christians, atheists, and all things like that. I want to get back to that, but someone brought up a really interesting topic of, the agnostic atheism thing that we went down a rabbit hole with, but as well as some kind of biblical information and things like that. And I will get back to everybody on that. So I just wanted to first and foremost say that, and look out for videos pertaining to the topics in which have been inquired.
Awesome. And I just want to say it's been, we had a couple different episodes, and then you've been working hard on school stuff, and it's good to have us back in the driver's seat together here and ready to rock and roll. It's been a couple episodes, so welcome back, and it's good to have you by my side here. So before we jump into the conversation tonight, just a couple things. One, don't forget to go and check out the website tart.live, TART.live, and on there you can find our merchandise. And I know we've been talking about it, but I'm very close to releasing some new items in there, and as soon as I have them ready, of course, I'm going to send them to the guys to get peer review before I post them. But I have been working on those, and they are at hand. So we'll do that. Also, you can go to the round table, and you can schedule your time to sit at the round table with us and have a great conversation, great dialogue. So go on there and check that out. And also, do not forget about our Discord. That is where anybody and everybody can get on there and have a conversation about just about anything. But the name of the server is let's talk about religion, or let's talk religion. And on there, literally just about anything goes. And what I love about it is it's just great conversations with a lot of great people, and we get a lot done there. There's a lot of productive things in there. So that being said, I want to make two thank yous before we jump into the conversation with our guests. First and foremost, I said it the other night, and I didn't have him next to me, but now that I have him next to me, I want to make sure that I give a proper thank you. So again, Samuel Doolittle has sent me. Oh, my green screen's gonna mess with it, but sent me these comics. Second Coming is the name of them. And like I said, I've started thumbing through them, and my kids think they're a riot too, which is awesome. But Samuel, thank you. These are great, very entertaining. So if you enjoy reading comics and you want a good laugh, and you're an atheist, you would definitely enjoy those comics. So check that out. And then the last thing I want to say, and really probably other than the conversation with the guest tonight, the most important thing that we can say tonight is that, and I'm an episode or two late on this, which is 100% my fault, but we hit, and now we're almost already at 650 subscribers, but we hit 600 subscribers in right around 2 months. So all of you that are on here, you're viewing, you're going back and watching old videos, you're commenting, your live comments, even your comments after the fact, after we put them up on the channel. We cannot thank you guys enough. And you guys are the rock stars. You guys are the ones that make this thing continue to move and grow and thrive. And thank you is not enough, but via YouTube and video, that's the best I can do. So thank you with everything inside of us. We appreciate it, and keep rocking it out. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for your guys' support. We wouldn't be thriving like this. So Mike, anything you'd like to say?
No, just would echo that same thing, and also the people that have came over, whether it be from TikTok or Instagram or whatever it would be. It's much appreciated, because it's a lot. I think it's all kicked our ass. We're like, oh shit, okay, this is kind of taking off. We need to actually we need to go full speed, So it's been awesome, and that at least in the regard of the growth.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so again, final time, thank you. And we appreciate it a ton. So that being said, let's get down to business. So we have a very exciting guest with us tonight, and we've exchanged some emails and just going through some of the conversations as far as beliefs and views. I think is going to be great. I think everybody can walk away and have some different perspective or different light shed on certain things in this. So I think it's going to be awesome. That being said, without further ado, our guest for the night, this gentleman's name is Richard. And we're super happy to have him on and excited to have him on. And he is, going to be going through the roundtable format and process. And I think he's going to have a ton of fun. It's going to be exciting as we do. But Richard, very, very glad to have you on. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to be with us. How are you this evening?
Peace and respect to you all. I'm doing great, man. Hey, your YouTube channel is really taking off. Congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone hates my content. Pretty sure that's how that works.
I wouldn't say everyone. You can always find.
There's a few, I guess.
But Richard, when you have somebody that looks as good as I do on here, people are going to.
It's unfair. It's not a fair advantage, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell Jesus Mike the long hair thing, very not Jesus-y according to the Bible. Just want to say that.
Oh yeah, I'm actually very aware of that. What you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man's beard is his beard. Beard is his glory. That's how it works.
Would you subscribe to that verse?
Would I subscribe to? Yes, I do. That's why this hair is short and that hair's long.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool.
Totally.
Well, I'll do my best to do what I can during the duration.
maybe you could wrap the hair from your head around and make a longer beard, because it's exactly the same color as far as I can tell.
I've done that before.
Could be pretty cool.
Yeah, I've done that before. But yeah, we'll see how the rest of the show goes, and maybe we'll
get it woven in or something. That'd be awesome.
If I'm compelled by the evidence, then perhaps maybe I will.
Sure.
I'll see the errors.
I don't see that happening at all. No.
Yeah, probably. But we'll see.
Cool. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Anything you want to add?
Yeah. So I got a little YouTube channel. The problem is that I'm absolutely arguing with everyone. That's the issue. I reject scholarship on spiritual texts, including the Bible, because I think that their view of it has been adopted from earlier views, and where it actually originates is in a warring tribe of raiders who were very, very violent and self-righteous. And then it's still read that way, and that's gone all the way through Islam and into Christianity. And they still read it in that same way, which is a part of the reason I think that they say absolutely horrible things. And from their reading frame, that makes sense. But that's not necessarily the only reading frame to be had on the topic, on that text. In fact, I have a harder time extrapolating Judaism than the reading frame that I've adopted.
Okay. All right. Very good. And those are the things that we're excited to, especially when we get to the why, to start chopping those things up and going through that. So that just gave everybody a little bit of a teaser there. So so thank you for that. So
you're welcome.
Richard, what I like to do is just briefly ask one, maybe two, just kind of get to know you questions.
Sure.
So before we jump into the content and go through the what, how, why, tell us something about Richard. Maybe what your favorite pastime is, your favorite hobby, something like that. So just on a human level, we get to know you a little bit.
Okay. My favorite hobby is reading technical manuals.
Okay. And
I'm a machinist and a heavy equipment operator and a construction guy. We're super boring. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say I was going to try to guess your, or at least somewhere around your career path, because usually, because I actually know a couple people that they would say the same thing, and it's interesting how the human brain works, and some things entertain other people that other people find completely boring and ridiculous.
Sure.
Because my stepdad's similar to that. He can sit around and read that stuff all day, and he thinks it's fascinating. I'm like, I think it's like watching paint dry. But he loves it. And then there's stuff that I love to do, and he's like, "You're an idiot. Why do you like doing that?"
Yeah, I love physical puzzles. I can't stand a mystery novel. I can't stand science fiction. All those pretend things just make me insane. I can't stand them.
Okay, very good, very good. No, thank you for that. So, Richard, in the pre-show and then via our conversation beforehand, I know that we already discussed the roundtable format, but for the listeners, maybe somebody's first time listening, we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page as we are as we go through this. So, for those that have not seen the Atheist Roundtable before, it's very simple. The way this works is very simple. So we have a 3-question format. The first is going to be what Richard's going to share, kind of what his story is. What he's gone through, what he's seen, heard that's got him to this point, and then the how did he arrive to his current destination, which is his world or religious beliefs. And then once we get through that, then we'll go into what I think is the biggest question of the evening, and that is the why. Why does Richard believe what he believes? And we'll do that. Then at the end, we'll have our Q&A with Murder Shed Steve. He'll pop his face in here and go through those questions with us. So that being said, Richard, let's get down to business and tell us about you. What do we need to know about Richard, and kind of what has helped form you or mold you into the human you are today?
Well, being raised by a Roman Catholic whom I'm pretty sure did not understand what was causing the babies. I grew up as the next youngest child in a rather large family. My mom having had a total of 7 kids. At 12 years old, being an altar boy along with my almost twin brother, because one cute little red-haired, freckled face, the whole thing, and 2 boys that look almost like twins. The priest started treating me with some amount of respect, and I would spend 3 hours per Sunday after church at his house, having what he called cordials and watching philosophical movies and having discussions about those movies and arguing philosophy with him at 12 years old. But that was before he tried to rape me. When he tried to rape me, I thought, I think that he has been just setting me up for this the whole time. So since he was doing that, he's not trustworthy. He's never been honest. I don't know who he is. And I left the Catholic Church having told Mom that Jesus is not made of plaster. She accepted that as an excuse to not go to church anymore. So I was the only kid living at the house who didn't have to go to church. So I was anti-theist, making the positive claim there could be no God. Yes, I know that's logically inconsistent. And was that way until age 42, at which time I read the only story that I could recall from any spiritual text, and that would be David and Goliath, 1 Samuel 16:23 through 18:6. And a movie played in my head that educated me. And I thought it was wrong. I set out to prove it wrong, and I found out that I was wrong. And I changed my mind about authorship of the Bible. And that puts me where I am right now, showing a context to people, or trying to, and failing mostly, to show people a context that is not traditional, but comports with reality.
Okay. All right. So a couple things stand out there that, the one I want to ask, I think, is going to directly impact the why. So I'm going to save it because I think it's going to fit in better there. So I have that circled on my paper. Mike, any questions on that part? Because the 2 I have are more directly connected to why.
Yeah, if I could keep it on the what and keep them a little bit more simple, I would ask first off, what movie?
What movie?
Yeah.
What movie played in my head? David and Goliath.
You're saying like, I thought you were saying you saw, maybe I misheard you. What did you mean by?
I read the story and a movie played in my head.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. And would a movie in my head be indicative of the truth of the same event?
Only if it had falsifiable information, which you attempted to prove incorrect, and it proved to be correct, and it was outside your knowledge base. Then it could be true.
So you hold falsifiability in regards to
some aspects.
What do you mean by some aspects?
I mean, since it's a prophecy, it hasn't happened. I can only show in chemistry and physics plausibility of the series of happenings. So the plausibility is falsifiable, but the happenings are not. They haven't happened.
Yeah, but and we can get into the why, but wouldn't that be a mistake in terms of what you're expecting in regards to falsifiability?
I don't understand what you mean.
You're saying plausibility is enough for you to falsify something?
Well, the parts that are falsifiable can't be falsified. That is, there is a potential there. A potential is a real thing.
Sure.
If there was no potential, it would be falsified.
What would you differentiate falsifiability with something that's unfalsifiable?
Say it again, please.
What would you differentiate something that's falsifiable as opposed to something that's unfalsifiable?
What would I differentiate?
Yeah.
You mean how would I differentiate?
Yes, I'm sorry. How would you differentiate? I'm sorry. I'm thinking what because of the section we're in. Yeah. How would you differentiate?
How would I differentiate between something non-falsifiable and something falsifiable? You can test it and find it in reality.
Okay.
There's a Russian space station on the other side of the moon, but we can't see the other side of the moon. That's non-falsifiable.
Okay. I'm just trying to gauge what you would consider unfalsifiable and something that's falsifiable.
Inside this block of concrete is a metal bell. I can bust open the concrete and see if it's there.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
All right. Awesome.
Awesome. All right. So the next part of the format is the how. So Richard, again, and again, for people that just jumped on, the how is how did you arrive to this destination? So you just shared, some of the things that you experienced and heard and seen and felt. Now through all that, how did you how did you arrive to this destination where you are today as far as your world or religious view?
Well, my religious view is that they are prophetic, not historic stories given all over to the planet to all people once they got cooperative enough that they had, a few minutes to sit down during the day, no longer doing hunting and gathering, stuff like that. I don't know. Could you ask the question again? Because I want to go back.
Yeah, no problem. So how, you things in your childhood, teen years, whenever those things transpired, you went through some things, saw some things, and then that has led you, through your life path to the destination where you are today. How did you arrive to this place? Well, I think the easiest way to get to that answer, and I apologize for not asking this first. First of all, Richard, what do you what label or what do you consider yourself? Is it theist, Christian? Where do you lie?
I think those are mostly false labels. It's not universalism either, because universalism has its own prejudice. But I believe truly that all the ancient religions referring to a singular living God are actually authored by the same God, just designed slightly different for slightly different people. I come to that because of the extreme amount of very definitive stories approximating about 20 different stories exist worldwide, but only 20. And they just are exceedingly repetitive. And so because of that, and because of the amount of detail, I accept that they are the same story. So even though I was an anti-theist and thought of myself as a well-adjusted, happy person, as much as people can be happy, and nothing significantly horrible or tragic happened in my life, it's just that I was shown a view that works, and I've come to accept it because I can't disprove it. But in fact, I do a YouTube channel. I invite people with better education, better minds, more logic, what have you, to come and help me disprove it.
Okay, so I'll dig a little further there. So do you currently hold the belief that there is a God or a higher power? What's your stance there?
Yeah, I'm convinced there is a living being whom we are descendants of, who does not live here, who can communicate with us.
All right, so just I'm taking notes, so I want to make sure I get this properly. So a living being that
doesn't live here.
That doesn't live here and talks to us.
He can communicate with us, yes.
Okay, and so then to the how did you get to that place? Through, you said Catholicism, then an anti-theist, and now to there being a living being or agent that's living. A living being doesn't live here and can communicate with us. How did you arrive to that destination?
I saw all the normal evidences of experiencing a being who was outside of myself, although there was no physical appearance of such being near or around me. And what seemed more like my imagination than anything else, but from outside of my knowledge range, outside of my educational background, translated information to me. The first time was through that movie sequence that played in my head. Was the first time a transfer happened, where I could falsify the actual information and see if it was true in reality, despite the fact that I could not have known those things.
Okay. All right. So on the what, and I'm asking this, I guess, to get a little more clarity, because I didn't, for me personally, I didn't hear it there. So what?
Sorry.
No. And that's what this conversation is all about, is helping us understand. And anytime I'm asking questions, I'm seeking to understand, and I'm listening with the intent to learn. So in that, I'm still not clear on how you arrived to living being doesn't live here but can communicate. So how did you get from anti-theist to that?
I feel like I've answered it. I guess I'm not answering it the way that it needs to be answered, and I apologize for that. It seems to me that if I receive information that I could not have known, didn't have the background of, the origin of that is someone, not me. So over a course of several occurrences of information of it's not me, investigating them, seeing if they're falsifiable, finding they were, coming to trust in this it's not me, I am convinced that this it's not me exists.
Okay, so in you're obtaining or receiving or getting this info, this information, what did that look like? What did that sound like? Are we talking about an audible communication? Are these feelings? Provide, maybe shine some light on that. How did you receive that information?
Well, as I say, the first time it happened, it played like a movie sequence in my head, and the movie sequence translated the story of David and Goliath into something I've never heard of. In fact, I don't know of someone who's heard of it. So either I'm the most inventive, insane person you ever met, because I mean, how many billions of people have read the Bible? I don't know. But I don't think that I'm historically not creative. I might be insane, but I'm historically not creative. That's just not something that I do. So I have my doubts that it's that. I don't think I'm the smartest human being that ever read that story. That doesn't seem likely. But when I
elaborate on what it was the movie sequence was for Oz and myself,
I'd be happy to. So the story of David and Goliath, classically thought of, portrayed as three-dimensional beings on a sandy, beachy, kind of deserty area, and a valley at a certain place, transformed into the near-stellar objects from the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, the inner and outer asteroid belt, that would be the armies, and the Goliath, the giant, as Jupiter. So the physical characters literally changed into planets and stellar objects.
Okay, so you're saying that David and Goliath are now stationary planets?
What do you mean by stationary?
I'm sorry. David and Goliath are now like actual planets. Like
Yes.
you're not using a metaphor for this.
No,
saying
sanctioned actual. NASA says they're planets.
As in a person, NASA says that two people became planets, is what you're saying.
No, I didn't say NASA said that. I said NASA calls those objects planets.
Yes, but how? I guess what I'm saying is that you're saying that two people in a story became planets. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, all the people in the story became planets, not just two of them.
They all became planets. So
yes.
Was the Earth a person at some point?
Yeah, he would be represented by the character Eliab. You mean, do I think this planet Earth was once a person? Is that what you asked me?
Well, to be fair to what you're telling me, I mean, that would be, I think, the logical question to ask you, because that's what it sounds like.
I don't know how a person becomes a planet. I'm sorry. I don't understand that as a theory.
I'm right there with you. That's why I'm asking you.
Okay.
So that's what I'm asking you. How does a person become a planet? Because
it's not part of the story that a person becomes a planet. The planet is always been there. It's represented by a person in the story.
Yeah, but I could represent a lot of things with a lot of different things. But if it's
of course you can.
Sure, but in regards to the law of identity, that doesn't apply. So it's because it's not actually that planet is that planet. It's not also David. It's not also Goliath.
Right.
That would violate the law of identity, correct?
Sure it would, yeah.
So then help me explain what's going on.
It's a parable, an analogy, a metaphor.
Sure. Well, what would be the overall purpose of the analogy of the thing? If I guess I'm trying to understand what's the purpose of the analogy. Well, what's the importance of it? Why does it matter?
Oh, if you apply the story of David and Goliath to the near stellar objects that I will later describe, most likely,
okay.
What you get as a series of cause and effects, as seen from the Earth with normal human vision, is what the Book of Revelation would refer to as the announcing miracles.
Okay,
that is, you could say the Book of Revelation is what, and David and Goliath is how. What will be seen? How will it be produced?
Could you not just represent that with two other objects, though?
I'm sorry. I don't know what you're saying.
Could you not just represent everything you said with two other objects?
Well, in different religions, they don't always use David and Goliath in every religion to tell this story. Mm-hmm. In Greek mythology, it's instead of David and Goliath, it's Hermes and hold on, Anges. Hermes and Anges. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, how would you how would you demonstrate the external aspect of like? So you're saying that these things could, because we could attribute any meaning to, like, I could attribute this to, my doctrine of skepticism, and it represents whatever, and I could come up with all these different things. But sure, is that actually indicative of the external universe?
Is it indicative of the external universe?
Yes. Does it actually?
You mean is it like showable in reality? That kind of indicative of the external universe?
Your metaphors. I mean, are they just not more platitudes and linguistics that we use within what we know?
You're welcome to think so, but that's inconsistent logically. You can't have all points within a story fit the story in context, also working definitionally from the original words, and then call all that a coincidence. I think that's just not consistent. Sorry.
All right, we'll touch back up on that. I would have to know a little bit more of what you mean by that before I could say that I disagree with that.
Okay. So if you had a roulette wheel, right? Say it has 52 spaces, mm-hmm. right? And somebody bet one time and they won the first time, and everybody mm-hmm. claps, and the second time and everybody claps, and the third time and everybody claps. Mm-hmm. Long about 10 times in a row, everyone knows it's rigged. No one is going to think that's a fair game. No one's going to think that.
Sure, but has the possibility been completely demonstrated to not be the case? Is it impossible for that to happen 10 times in a row?
Well, it's intuitive, first of all, and yes, you're right. But when you get to 52 out of 52, that is, everything is a positive hit. Mm-hmm. Everything.
Yeah, I would agree that would indicate certain things, but
I find that personally compelling. First of all, intuitively, that's compelling.
Cool.
But then when I see the same story,
could I say in your example that in regards to that is being used in reference, we know the parties involved, and we know that those things are actually like there to be able to demonstrate and observe the product of it, and then come to the conclusions based on it being actually manifested in reality. How could you apply those same variables for the claim?
Although that I'm aware that you can't just say whatever's left over is true. You know, the Sherlock Holmes thing is flawed. I understand that. Mm-hmm. There are points of it that I can show true in reality. That is the chemical plausibility, the mechanics of the story work in our actual solar system. Of course, unless Jupiter were lit on fire, I can't show you Jupiter on fire. You know, I can't show you that. Okay. Is that fair?
I would say that last part is fair. Sure.
Okay.
We can get into more of what that demonstration would be to show, say, the parallel that you're drawing with that, with Jupiter being on fire and being able to say, well, I have epistemic warrant to say that Jupiter's on fire because look, and we'll get into that and the how and the why. But
right on. Okay.
Cool. And then I just got one or two things to add there, Richard, as I was listening and taking some notes there. So one, you know, I'm I'm a former Bible believing Christian of 30 plus years. So
I'm sorry.
Me too, brother. But I have a good grasp on the scripture. Now, am I a theology major or anything like that? No. But I've spent hours and hours and hours reading and studying that book and the origins and all that. So I feel like when we start talking about the Bible stories and everything, I can have a very good, solid conversation. And my question, my follow-up question to that is why, you know, when you had this movie-like sequence of events, go through your head and you process that, and we came to planets. I believe you said, planets, that David and Goliath in that story were planets. And I think you even said that the people in that story were planets. Was that correct?
Well, first, I didn't process anything.
Okay. All right. So please explain.
That's not an accurate way to say it.
Well, and that's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking, because I don't want to misrepresent. So that's why I'm asking.
I say as an outside observer, as if I am the movie camera filming the stage play. Okay. Filming the movie. That's my position in it. Okay. I'm a non-participant. And although I had exercised several times successfully lucid dreaming, where I realized I was dreaming, took over the dream, did what I want, in this particular sequence, not only was I not asleep, but I also could not take control of it. The whole thing lasted maybe 3.5 minutes. And it was the movie sequence itself that did the translation. I did not do the translation.
Okay. All right. So in that, for the first question, could possibly lead into a second one. But why would you say it's David and Goliath and not Peter and Paul or Jesus and John the Baptist, or why that particular story? Why those two particular characters? That I'm trying to wrap my head around. Why that particular story?
Well, it's not arbitrary choice. First of all, there's necessary aspects in actuality described in the character's physicality. Okay, so all the aspects of the character are describing certain planets. They stand in the correct order. They do all the stuff that planets do. They run around each other. They do all kinds of stuff. So I don't get to choose. I could not substitute Goliath for Paul, nor David for Jesus in any way. There's no way I could do that.
Okay, and we don't have time for this tonight, but I think a diagram would be very helpful in what you're explaining for me, because I'm a visual guy, and seeing a diagram, because I do understand that particular story very, very well. So I think more than even more talking about it, if you have something that you've taken those thoughts or your personal interpretation of what you.
It's not my interpretation. I'm sorry, it's just not true.
Well, but
I've adopted it because I can't disprove it. It doesn't make it mine.
Well, but how is that not? If you were the to use your words, the camera, right? Mm-hmm. And now whether I mean, you've cycled it, whether you want to call it cycled or processed, or it's went through your brain. You've processed through your brain. You've seen it, observed it, whatever word you want to use there. You now have to have some type of perspective or view on it, because that's how our brains work. We gain perspective from.
I have
from
opinions about it, if that's what you mean.
Well, I don't think the opinion is necessarily relevant, as that now you're asserting that David and Goliath and the characters in that particular part of the Bible now represent planets, but you say it's not a perspective or something that it's fact to you, but you only want to share an opinion. So I'm a tad confused. Like I feel like it's all very disconnected. So I'm trying to get down to a home base here. Where is it perspective? Is it opinion? Is it fact? I'm respectfully, I'm lost, and I'm trying to gather this right now.
Well, I think we know what is quote unquote fact by consensus, by having peers review things and say, okay, this is plausible, this is not plausible. And those things that hold up well, we tentatively call facts. So do I think it's a fact? Well, I can't disprove it. I'm trying to disprove it. I invite others to help me disprove it. So far, I know of no one who has made a real argument against what I'm saying as plausibility. Even literary scholars who are very educated and I think smarter than I am on that text. I don't see any actual arguments. They can say things like tradition says you're wrong, but that's just an appeal. It's a logical fallacy. It means absolutely nothing. And if the scholars, both theologian and secular, have adopted a view that is difficult to extract, which makes unnecessary assumptions, has very little explanatory power, is not justified by other parts of the text, cannot be justified in reality, I think it's worth throwing away.
Yeah. And I know we've spent a lot of time on the what already, but I think the reason why me and Austin are still on the what, we have not moved on to the how, is that we're not really fully understanding what it is, because, and maybe this could be all on me. I mean, I could be missing something here, but I'm not sure what it would be that I'm falsifying here. I don't really understand. Like you mentioned the planets, but I'm not seeing like.
Okay, let's just start at the beginning of that. Are there planets?
Yes.
Are there planets in our solar system?
As far as I can tell, yes.
Do we have fairly decent pictures of them and a little bit of chemical analysis on some of them?
Yes and yes.
Okay. So I'm saying that I was uneducated about those stellar bodies.
Yep.
I was unaware that there were four Jovian moons, or the word Jovian for that matter, over Jupiter that fit the description of the armament, that is the sword, shield, brass body armor, and spear of the giant. I had no idea those moons even existed.
But those are moons. They're not shields or swords. That's where I'm losing you.
Yes, that's because it's an analogy. It's a metaphor.
But couldn't. Okay. I want to. We can touch back on the couldn't we use anything as an analogy? But you said a statement.
But you can't if all points line up. I mean, if you can find all points line up, make it. We'll investigate that. Let's do that.
Okay, so that brings me to actually the most and probably important thing we would even ask about this, which is you make the statement can't be disproven.
Right.
None of the religions that I talk to people with, I feel that I've disproven. I don't believe in them.
Well, I don't mean mathematically disproven. That's not really. I was speaking.
No. I know. What I'm saying is that like your belief right now, I can't disprove it either. I mean,
but you can prove parts of it.
No. Well, so let's put it this way. Let's say that there was a show, and let's say that there was a show with Demolished Doctrine, and he was talking to J. Mike and Oz. Okay, and then we found out that these historians, like thousands of years later, were like, there was this big explosion, huge explosion, and it took out demolished doctrine on his side. It took out J. Mike on his side. It took out Oz on his side. It took all us out. Okay. And the historians, they come and they go look, and they find that a J. Mike existed. And they find that a demolished doctrine existed. And they find that they had a YouTube channel. And they find all these things that explain this.
Mm-hmm.
It does not get you to that a giant explosion happened and that all this stuff happened. That is independent of those things.
True.
Right? So that's what that's my problem, is that none of these are linking. Nothing is causal to what you're saying.
Okay, when we develop an intuition that might become a hypothesis, how do we know whether or not we can call it a hypothesis?
Well, I mean, you could technically have a hypothesis about anything, but it not being able.
No, you can have an intuition about anything. Hypotheses require some amount of testing and verification.
Well, yes,
you can't have a hypothesis about anything.
Well, no, I'm saying yes, within the realm of being able to test whatever it might be that you could actually test. Sure. What I'm concerned is that your claim is unfalsifiable. I'm not 100% sure.
You can say that. That's fine. We haven't gotten that far.
Exactly. And I'm saying that we haven't gotten that far. It's for me to say
That's fair.
The clarification is for me to figure out this. But my main concern is when you say it can't be disproven. That is not a justification for belief. There's no.
It can also be verified. It's falsifiable. Certain aspects of it, in plausibility that the potential is there, can be falsified. Either those objects with that chemistry exist or they don't. So, either they fit the description in the story or they don't.
So those objects exist and they have chemistry. None of that has had a link. You're missing an ontological gap in terms of that to David and Goliath. There's you haven't demonstrated one. There could be that link. What is it?
What do you mean? What is the link? I saw the story.
What's the point of mentioning if there is no link?
I don't understand what you're asking by it. What's the link? That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying there is no link. I don't think your question makes no sense. I think I don't understand your question.
Okay, let me rephrase. What's the point of the story if you're not going to provide me how those two are related to each other?
I just haven't yet. It's not that I refuse.
Okay. Well, then we can get into that. That's all I need to know then.
Okay.
Cool. All right, guys. Thank you for that. And I'll jump in real quick here so we can get to the why and kind of really start to open this conversation up. And this is, we really got to have some fun. So I want to mention this for the viewers. Thank you for being on tonight and checking out this episode. And Richard, thank you for being on with myself and Jesus Mike. And we're having fun so far. This is a great conversation, and I think a lot of great topics here. And now we're going to get into the meat of things, and that is the why. And for us, and I know the viewers that message us, this is their favorite part of the show. This is when we get to have a blast, Richard. So Richard, we went through all that, and we had a couple cliffhangers there, so to speak, but that's okay. We'll come back around to some of those there.
I also realized I said what when I meant how, so I'm just getting all sorts of screwed up in my head. So
You're good. Hey, we're all human here.
Yeah.
But Richard, the question of the night for you at the Atheist Roundtable is, why do you believe what you currently believe today?
Okay. I think that's a great question that everyone should ask themselves on a regular basis, actually. I think I believe what I believe for the same reasons that anyone believes anything. I mean, other than being intuitively, it seems correct. It's emotionally appealing to me. I find evidence where I expect evidence to be. I find no evidence where I expect evidence to not be. And the things that are falsifiable within the text that I see makes me believe that because of consistency, contextuality, correspondence to my sensibilities about what reality is, I find it very compelling. So, and that's not the same as everyone should find it very compelling, because not everyone is me. They will find different things compelling, and that's all fine. But for now, I hold that, and I hold tentatively that this is a fact. Now, that does not mean I can show it's a truth. All right. And my confidence in a claim has nothing to do with the veracity of the claim. The veracity of the claim is completely up to the person who's reviewing it. That is to say, I make you the judge. I lay this in front of you, and it's yours to discern. I don't consider myself to be the judge. I don't think that's my place.
Okay. All right. So there's several different directions to go there. So you again, and sometimes, Richard, so I repeat answers. That way I know I have an understanding, and I assure that I'm not misrepresenting you as the guest, right? So you you believe that you have something that is fact and not truth. Is that accurate?
So far.
Okay. All right. So what is what is causing you to not accept it as truth if you found facts?
Super stringent definitions of what fact and truth are. Truth is something that is objective within the universe, not subject to my opinion, how I feel about things or anything like that. Those would be truths. I think what we believe, and even if you get into technical definitions in science, most things are facts, and they don't even claim that it's a truth. And I hold to those kinds of strict definitions.
Okay. All right. So then if we rewind back then, even if it's just on a fact claim and not a truth claim, if we rewind back and we go to the movie sequence that you experienced or saw, and you had that, and there's the planets, and each character represented a planet, and then those things have now brought you to this belief, and you now you hold this view that's really, to me so far, comes off as unfalsifiable. And I think, in my opinion,
it should right now.
Is that maybe the reason nobody's been able to debunk it is there is no debunking it. There is no fault. There is no.
Do me a favor. Try not to insult me like that again.
No, it's not an insult. I'm trying to get down to the truth.
It's seriously an insult, and I'm quite serious.
And sir, with all due respect, I'm never here to insult anyone.
I know you're not doing it on purpose. I'm just asking you to avoid it. That's like me saying, "Are you sure you've seen your birth certificate?"
Well, no, it's not at all. It's not at all, Richard. And
it very much is.
Okay,
it very much is. I have not given you any of the actual examples.
I'd be happy to show my birth certificate, and I wouldn't be upset about it.
That's fine. I don't mind showing it either. I just haven't had a chance yet. To say that you think it's not falsifiable is a statement that you can't make presently, which means the only default position would be that you think that I'm not being upfront with you.
No, Richard. What I'm saying is the questions we're asking you, the answers that, and I'm not going to speak for anybody else. For me, the answers that I have listened to tonight, that's where I stand. So it's not an insult. I'm just telling you where I stand, and that's part of the conversation. Now, just like we're both here to find a happy medium or prove fact or truth. That's where we're at. So me making that statement isn't a disrespectful thing at all. That was not my intent. It was
perhaps
to say
I need you to expound on what you mean by not falsifiable.
You've shared that you had this movie-like experience, that you saw it through a camera lens, then that the characters in that Bible, or I'm sorry, in that story.
Just that alone, how do we falsify your own thoughts of a movie in your head? I mean,
because they're either true in reality or they're not.
But that in itself is inherently unfalsifiable. And then the independent evidence that you've provided is what we're waiting on.
Right. I understand that, but the only solution to that, and that's lending towards solipsism, which I don't think is a conversation worth having, because I think you're a being outside of me, and if not, there's no point in talking. So I mean, I have to assume that you're a real person.
Yeah, we can demonstrate it.
I think so.
To the best of your ability, right? So why wouldn't? I mean, Austin, you go ahead, but I just want to throw out that that's the reason why he's saying what he's saying, is because we're kind of we've gotten into the why, and we haven't had the epistemic warrant yet. So that's why we are saying, as far as we can tell up to this point, it hasn't been. We don't even know how we would falsify it. So if you could provide what would provide the criteria for us to falsify, we'd have no problem. But I would say if it doesn't get there, then there's a common theme why people can't debunk it, because of you're not providing something to.
That would be fair.
Yeah. And for the record, Richard, that's where I was leading to is I can't you seeing something through like as if you were the camera. I can't. There's no way that I can falsify that. There's no way. So that's why I'm continuing to probe. And if that was a very direct question, then I will stand behind asking very direct questions. That's part of our.
No, that's fine. It's fine.
Purpose. And it wasn't meant to be an insult at all. It's trying to get down to the roots or the brass tacks of what we're talking about. So if you can expound more on the why you believe that, maybe that will help us. But please know we want this to be respectful and cordial and all that. So
I expect as much. I mean, in your other shows, I've seen you being that, and I appreciate that. Yeah. How about we just get down to the brass tacks and say, well, what do I believe is falsifiable about it?
That word gives Austin a boner, by the way, but go on.
Okay. Happy to help you out anytime. Hope your wife appreciates it later.
Oh, she will.
That she won't. I'm sorry to hear that.
No,
okay.
She will.
Oh, she will. She will. Okay. Good. I'm glad that helps maintain relationships.
Yeah. Thanks for your contribution. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. If there's any other key phrases I can use to help you become, inclined in that direction, maybe make another baby, I'm happy to help.
No more babies.
Okay, sure. All right. Okay, so let's just get down to what I believe is falsifiable about it. I believe that there are planets that we're not living in a glass dome or a crystalline structure on this Earth, and those are not fake objects. They are not just lights in the sky. They're actual, moons and asteroids and planets and stuff like that. That those planets have a general description, that the general description in the story actually fits those stellar bodies, from little tiny David being close to Saul representing the sun. And then he has 7 bigger brothers. And yes, I know we've eliminated Pluto as a planet, but in this story, Pluto is still a planet. And only 3 of his brothers show up for the war. And the 3 brothers that show up stand out of size order. They're given size order originally. Then they stand out of that order, putting the big one in the middle. That would be Venus, Earth, and Mars. The inner and outer asteroid belt, usually just called the asteroid belt. But there are significantly larger rocks to the outside and a greater count of them, significantly smaller rocks to the inside toward the sun. And I'm in the middle of a show, bro. Sorry. Hold on a sec. Yeah. You can come and sit if you want or whatever. Sorry, that was really, really distracting. Just a friend of mine. Sorry.
You're good. No problem.
I invite friends to show up unannounced, and he did, and that's great. Sorry. Continuing on. And then outside of that is the actual, there are moons by the description. I mean, if you look at pictures, it's really easy to see that Callisto looks like pig metal. It looks like pig iron. It really does. That Europa does look well shined up and pretty with just a little taint of rust on it. And that there is a moon that looks like it's brass. I mean, it's not shiny enough to call it like that looks like gold, but it definitely looks like brass because it's 90% yellow sulfur. And there is a great big shield out far away from the giant Goliath. In the moon Ganymede, the biggest moon in our solar system, there is an eye in the forehead. It's forming as we speak. It's recent science. But the 400 some odd year old great red eye is now shrinking and reforming in the forehead of the giant, so to speak. So, and then there's 4 brothers that don't show up, and there's 4 other planets. If you'll allow me Pluto as a planet, but that's debatable. But that's how the order of the objects come and the description of the objects come. Now, when I'm talking about plausibility in science and physics, that these things could happen and in that order. Now we're getting into the really nuts and bolts of it.
Okay. So you want to dig into that?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so the text reads that God puts an evil spirit in Saul, and that's where the story begins. And that's a context change. And there's no reason for me personally in this reading frame to require Saul to be continuous from beyond that point, nor after the joining of David and Nathaniel as one. And that's the end of the story, as far as I can see.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
No, not at all. Okay. So God, quote unquote, put an evil spirit in Saul. The first announcing miracle would be a quaking of the earth. Okay. So an evil spirit in Saul is something that we would see as evil, not necessarily that it is evil. And we now understand that the sun can let off solar ejecta. They're not invisible to us anymore like they were during or just before the Carrington event, where in 1859, all of the telegraph in the United States was fried instantaneously, actually, or simultaneously. So we now understand that solar ejecta puts real energy into our atmosphere. And very recently, I think about 7 or 5 years ago, we found that there are particles from solar ejecta that can penetrate the crust rather easily, but for whatever reason are soaked up by magma, and it actually drops the viscosity of magma, allowing it into smaller crooks and crannies, and can sometimes trigger seismic events, especially volcanic events. So it is true. We know now that an evil spirit coming from the sun can shake the earth. We actually know that. We also have found that certain patterns of gravitational fields of planets can encourage or aim solar ejecta. So there's no surprise to me that David plays the harp and it dispels the evil spirit in Saul. That's not very surprising. Moving on, David rejects the armor of Saul. That is, something comes from Saul, and David does not pick it up. But David does pick up 5 smooth stones from the brook. To me, in this reading, this would read as a 6-part comet that breaks up while circling the sun. 1 part misses Mercury, 5 parts impacted. And no, I'm not dependent on the impact as much as I am an electrical discharge to dislodge Mercury, in this story, Mercury, David, from beside Saul, from near Saul. I never even finished why all the evidence, I'm skipping a lot, why David is a planet. That's all in the story, well pronounced. If you don't mind me backing up, I'll get back to the run, David's run to the giant. I'll pick back up there. But David is telling Saul that he can beat the giant. And he says, I was in my father's house in Bethlehem, and I went to go and protect the sheep, and along came a lion and a bear, and I smote them both before returning home to Bethlehem. Those are 3 constellations. Bethlehem literally means house of bread, the proper name of the constellation Virgo. And then after Virgo, going in the direction the planets go, you can come to sheep. And then if you continue on, you will come to Leo and Ursa Major. That's the lion and the bear. So
how did you come to sheep?
Aries. It's a constellation, Aries.
You are aware that when the ancient Babylonians made this up, they didn't understand the earth wobbles like a top, right?
Do you understand? I don't think people wrote this.
Sure, but it's weird because you're using something which is actually taken off of, I believe, the Iliad, which is ironic that you would also be now using something which would be mixing of the pots, where now you're implying some kind of astrology to it.
The Bible is definitely using astrology throughout.
Sure. So, but you are aware that we know that astrology would be inaccurate
What do you mean by astrology is inaccurate? Do you mean like planets affect your mood? Yeah, that's inaccurate.
No. I'm talking about when the sun would transverse over the constellations. That there actually would be inaccurate because they didn't account for the wobble. They didn't account for the tilt of the Earth, so they didn't understand this concept. So we're not even right when it comes to labeling it. Even if we were to just, for the sake of the argument, say it's true. So it no longer transverses over those constellations. What would you say about that?
I'd say the Earth's year's 365.2501388 days, and that we traverse a negative progression every 1,260 years through 30 degrees of a zodiac because of the wobble and because of the irregularities that you just mentioned, and that the Bible mentions all of that.
What verse?
What do you mean? What verse?
Where does it mention that? You said that. I'm going to ask what.
Go and read the blessings of Israel onto his 12 sons. They are the zodiac signs.
Yeah, so let's just pretend it does say that. How does that prove that that's true? Do you not think it's possible for me to draw a bullseye on a tree and then walk up to it and stick an arrow in the
yes,
bullseye?
Of course you are.
So
of course you are.
So then how do we know?
Because of consistency, comporting to reality, falsifiability. That's how we know things.
Sure, but I'm trying to see how. I don't even know how we would falsify this. You're literally you're violating the law of identity at almost every chance you get.
I don't know why you think this is a historical document. I would personally recommend dropping the idea.
Historical document in terms of none of this actually means anything then.
It's irrelevant whether or not there was a king of Judea named David. That's irrelevant.
I don't care if there was or there wasn't. I'm asking how this pertains to you knowing that a God exists.
Well, this is the beginning of several things. This is not the be all end all. This is a very, very tiny beginning of an experience.
And to be fair, and I think you could relate to me on this. We have a lot of viewers and we're an hour in. So how long will it take to get to the end of that? Because I want to be able to say whether we could falsify it or not. But it sounds like every time that we have a problem, you're like, well, we haven't gotten to the end yet. And that's what I'm kind of confused on.
Are you willing to accept that there are Jovian moons, that they do look like iron, brass, silver, and a big black thing with points on it? Are you willing to accept that?
Let's say that I am. Let's just go ahead and say that I am.
I don't know how you deny it.
Well, let's say that I do. How does that get us to
those are aspects of
pig iron, not pig metal, but it would be pig iron. And yes, I would say, sure, why not? But how does that get you to any God? Because you're just like, it's no different than saying you would agree that this PlayStation remote exists, right? And I would say yes. And then you would go, God. And that's what I'm not understanding.
Then I go, there's probably a PlayStation to go with it.
Yes. What goes with
there's necessary association, and then there's unnecessary assumptions. I'm not making unnecessary assumptions. It's just we haven't had 30 hours to talk about it.
I don't know what's the assumption.
You said my assumption is God. I didn't say that there are Jovian moons that fit that description there before God. I never said that.
Yes, but this pertains to the beliefs that you hold. So how are you getting to the conclusion that you are getting to?
Well, let's say you had 5,000 out of 5,000 points in different aspects of your life, and all of it shown to be true. At some point, you'll fold and go, okay, it's true.
Yes, but you're just saying if something's true, it's true. That doesn't get me to thinking that a God exists.
Right. Point. That I haven't said personally today anything.
Yes, but that's what this show is about. The show is about getting to your belief or your God belief. And
I'm sorry, it's not a 5-minute, 1 hour conversation. It's just not.
Okay, but in context of the show's limits, what could you give me? Because clearly the show doesn't run for 24 hours, right?
What's that?
Clearly the show doesn't run for 24 hours, right?
You mean clearly, yeah.
Yeah, so then how could you, did you expect to get...
I don't know, I personally feel like you're wasting a bunch of time right now.
Well, because, no, I'm not. I'm trying to get you to how you are concluding that your God belief is true or a supernatural belief is true.
That all falsifiable points within the story exist in reality. That's how.
That doesn't explain. Okay, so if I told you that same thing, you would now believe in God, or you would add credit to your story just because of that?
If you told me things that I didn't know and I wouldn't investigate, they were true, I would believe they were facts. I mean, if they were factual, I believe they were facts.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that it's emotionally appealing to you. Is emotion a good indicator of something that is fact?
Sure. Logic, emotion, intuition, falsifiability, the scientific method. This is how we know things.
You would think that emotion would play a better role than remove.
That's a straw man. I never said better. I said it matters.
Okay. So yeah, I would argue that emotion is what you do not want, because look at it this way. I could believe that determinism is true, and that could be true, but you know the horrible moral implications that could be involved with accountability, right? Correct? We have this issue of who could be actually responsible for something if we're in a deterministic universe.
Sure.
So if that's the case, I don't give it. And I'm going to be frank with you. This isn't to be disrespectful. This is just the way I talk. I don't give a shit if that goes against the way I feel about it. Sure. Because it is true, independent of my emotions.
Right.
My emotions have no impact on that. So how could emotion be because I have a statement from you that says that evidence is as compelling as intuition. But how could intuition be as reliable if we use empirical data? What would be even the point of intuition?
Wait a minute. You're saying, could you repeat what I said again?
Which part?
You said you have a direct quote from me. Do you still mean that you have a direct quote from me?
Yeah, I believe you even said it in here on here. Let me just ask you, to be more fair to you, is evidence as compelling as intuition? Personally for me, evidence is more compelling than intuition. Sure. So then why do you use intuition?
That's like saying, why would I leave tools out, man? Use everything you have.
Agreed, but wouldn't you agree that emotion could be a detriment to the position?
It could be.
If you
have to be careful of it.
Sure. So then why not just remove the emotional bias and go to the evidentiary warrant or the epistemic warrant?
I would hold that if we could talk long enough, everything that you believe has an emotional aspect to you personally, and part of the reason you've accepted is your emotions.
Sure, but the problem is that I don't accept a supernatural belief. I am on a position of going,
what if you're rejecting it based on your emotion now?
I'm not rejecting it, because I could believe that a purple fairy exists, and that could be fine. We could come up with infinity amount of things that I would have to deny because I don't believe that they are true.
No, you only have to show what is. That would be too much work to show everything that isn't.
Exactly.
Right.
That's my exact point, is that it's not my problem to waste my time doing that. My thing is to go, you have a claim, let me see the evidence. Okay.
Sure.
You didn't show your work, go back to your desk, and I'm not accepting that as me to be graded. That's what I'm viewing this as. I'm a teacher. You hand me something and I go, nope, that's not good enough.
I totally agree with you. That's why I wrote a paper on this with the falsifiability aspects, all of the definitions and the context in the paper. Would you like to grade it?
Well, no, I want to know what your fault, how we would be able to even falsify the claims you're making, because I don't even know how I would start.
Either there could be a series of cause and effects in chemistry and physics, or there can't be that series.
Okay, now we're getting into something we could talk about here. So if that's the case, you're now creating a dichotomy, are you not?
What? Something is either true or not true?
No,
when there is a chemical set of series, or there isn't, that's a dichotomy, of course.
So just based on you're getting into law, excluded middle now.
I don't see a third option, because chemistry, I think, as far as I know, is set in stone.
Okay, that's fair. So then if we're going to go into terms of falsifiability, and you're going to actually, how are we going to even determine what the options are if I don't even know what they are to be had? Because I don't know what
I'm gonna need a paraphrase on. I got lost in the sentence. I think the sentence was good, but I didn't get it.
I'm not knowing what I'm analyzing here for any option.
Right.
I don't know what the even contradictory statement of what your claim is. What it even would take to go, that would be unfalsified. I don't know what that is. That's why I'm struggling.
Well, the contradictory statement would be there's absolutely no way that a planet could lose its orbit. There's no way it could clear several objects and miss them by chance or on purpose on its traveling out of the solar system away from the sun. There's no way it could collide with the moon Europa, and then in turn the moon Io. There's no way an ignition could happen. There's no way electricity in that case could split the water into its base elements. There's no way that it could be sucked in by the gravitational field. Lighting
what?
It would prove this won't work.
No, but what does all of what you just said, what does that prove?
It would prove, I don't know, I'm insane or I have a really strong imagination, I guess. I don't know.
What is the evidence you just used? What is that proving?
I'm talking about plausibility in physics.
I know what you're talking about. You have a claim, and you just said all these things. What
would falsify it?
But okay, so what are these things proving? What are what is the evidence that you're providing proving? What does that prove?
It shows a series of cause and effect that would result in the unaided human eye from this planet seeing certain aspects of it so that it flips the fairy tale into reality and people go, oh, I get it. And they have an easy transition.
What fairy tale?
The fairy tale that Christians tell.
Okay, so now we have a link. Now you have on one side Christianity, and now you have on the other side the planetary things that you just mentioned. Anything within that has to do with the cosmos.
Okay.
Where is the link? How do you get me from? We're going to say that this is A on the alphabet, and then Z is the Christianity. What are the alphabets leading up to that? So please explain that to me, because that's
okay.
That's
words
what I'm getting frustrated is that I feel like we're not getting to what the evidence is.
I believe that words have definitions. Those definitions can have more than one usage. So context is important from within the text, whatever text you're talking about. I think that proper context should be consistent, not self-defeating. And it's easier to extract what I'm saying from the story of David and Goliath than it is Judaism. And that's aside from it not being historically accurate and having very, very implausible things in it. Like, where did he get that sword?
Yeah, but so
for instance,
are you presuming that the story is true? Do you have a presumption that the story is true?
What do you mean by true?
Are you going into this assuming that this happened?
I went into this an anti-theist.
So how could you determine something in history in the past that you're now thousands of years removed for? How did you determine that it's true?
I'm standing on the shoulders of giants when they say that's not realistic.
Okay, I can stand on the shoulders of giants by any claim that doesn't seem true. How did you go ahead and...
Okay, the majority of secular archaeologists and scholars are convinced, and a vast majority are convinced, that those people did not manufacture and did not use swords. And that means that he must have gotten it from a nearby town that did have swords, but that puts him in the wrong time frame.
But if you presume that the story is true, correct?
What do you mean by presume the story is true?
You're already starting with the notion that you think it's true.
No, I'm already starting with the notion that Christians think it's true. I'm trying to show you that doesn't make sense in reality.
Sure, I agree with that 100%. So
okay, good.
So then I don't get then now we're back into the circle. What's the causal link? You're saying all this stuff, but the planetary stuff, I would see no point of even mentioning it for the last hour if it didn't relate to the conclusion that you're drawing. There'd be no point of it.
The conclusion that I draw is modern science and physics shows these things plausible. Iron Age and Bronze Age people would not have had that science. Bronze Age people cannot author this story.
Yeah, but they don't mention tell me where they're mentioning the celestial beings moving. Like, I'm not understanding what you're saying when you're saying they mention this.
I'll give you a little example.
I've read an entirely different book than you. Clearly.
Yes. Clearly you have, and I'm sorry.
Yeah. So show me the verses because you can demonstrate it to me. I can literally look it up and look at it and see what you're saying.
I told you what verses. I told you the first verse and I told you the last verse. The first verse is.
I don't see anything
first
about
same
iron, pig iron. I don't see anything about any of the conclusions you've drawn in that verse. How are you?
You don't see brass armor on the giant. That's not in there.
That has nothing to do with pig iron on another planet.
Sorry, I used the expression pig iron when the text just says iron.
Yeah, but you said pig metal, which I would refer as somebody who has a little bit of knowledge in that you would be referencing pig iron, correct?
I meant pig iron. I said it two different ways. Twice, I think twice I said pig metal. I'm not harping you on that. I'm not harping you on the metal, the reference. I'm harping you on how you are just going from
this guy had armor to now it's indicative of a planet, because that's no difference than me going.
No, it's not a planet, it's a moon.
It's no different than me taking Aladdin and putting it in a slot and going,
yes,
that's representative of the double slit experiment. Therefore,
you do realize that what you're doing is you're taking one example out of several, and then you're saying that example is bad by itself because there's not enough examples.
No, I'm saying that you are using
exactly what you're doing right now.
I'm saying that you're like, in a sense, violating the law of identity, unless it's just metaphorical. And
no, it's just metaphorical.
Okay, then in that case, this represents, when I plug this into my Sega Genesis in that slot, that's representative of the observer effect in the double slit experiment. And then,
that's great. Let's keep going with that and see if it holds true continuously.
It doesn't hold true because there's
then you've got a flaw in your logic, sir.
And I would agree to the same sentiment on your side. That's what.
Except you're cherry picking one part, calling that correlation, when what I'm saying is several falsifiable points, and when 100% of it correlates, you can't call that correlation.
I don't see any correlation to even debate. Like, what am I?
You don't see it. I'm sorry for you.
You can be sorry for me, but you have the opportunity to demonstrate it, and then you're just going, I'm sorry you can't see it. Here's the verse. Then I go, well, it's not in that verse. What's the difference you saying that than me just going, okay, well,
I don't know. We're just arguing semantics here. I could have finished the story 3 times by now.
Okay. So guys, here's what we're gonna do. And the nice part, and this is why we do the after party, is because now we can go into that, and it's less of a structure, for the viewers, and we can go and and really dig in if we want to. Or one thing I appreciate about Richard when he jumped on the pre-show is he said, at some point we want to cut up and have some humor and all that. We can do that, and we haven't had time for that here, but I'd love to do that in after party, have a little fun, but also go back into this dialogue, this conversation, because it is intense. It is intense. You start talking about people's beliefs and their views and everything, or lack thereof. It does get passionate and heated, and I love it. I love having these conversations. To me, I don't take anything personal or anything like that. It's all about sharpening your mind and making each other better. So that being said, it's Q&A time. And where is Murder Shed Steve at?
Q&A with Murder Shed Steve.
Well, hello, everybody. I figured I would try something new today. Not sure if any of you have used an ice pick before. When the Iceman comes and brings you the big block and you got to chip away at it. Well, man, I'll tell you, those things get real slippery when they're wet. Anyway, I think it's about time for Q&A. So let's get to it. Oz, you want to hop in with our guest, Richard?
Here we are.
Well, howdy doody. I suppose we'll hop right in here with our first question. Why are you mixing Greek mythology with Christian mythology? They didn't.
Yeah, except they did. In fact, you'll see there's people who have doctorates in comparative religion because there's so many overlaps. If there weren't overlaps, you could never have a doctorate in comparative religion at all. So I think there's overlaps, and I see them plainly, and I think they exist.
Fair enough. I got another question here from Kyle. So if the stories are based on celestial bodies, how does that get you to a god? Would it not just be ancient cultures making up stories about the stars?
It could be. That's entirely possible, and something that has to be entertained seriously. However, not all the stories are like this. I said this story is like this. Not all of them have the same style. Not all of the stories, within one text, within one set of stories, is telling exactly the same thing several times. However, I can tell you David and Goliath in Greek mythology, or ancient astrology, or the Bible, and some Native American tribes. I haven't studied everything yet, so I can't answer to every religion on the planet.
Okay.
Oh, and I don't get it to a god that way. I get to a god that's a beginning. that I see evidence within that Bronze Age people could not have written the story. That made me start further investigating other things. So this was a small stepping stone along my journey.
So I kind of have a follow-up question then. So are you saying that essentially you're saying that a God exists as you approach this information?
I don't know. I don't understand. A God exists as I approach the information. What does that mean?
Like a presupposition.
No.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
No,
I misunderstood what you were saying.
All that requires is that someone somewhere had better science than us at that time. That's all it requires.
Okay.
It's not a definition of who that is.
Sure. All right. So next question here. Is intuition ever wrong?
Intuition is mostly wrong. But intuition is sometimes right. In fact, I don't know why they didn't include the word intuition in the scientific method when it is the first step. I guess they were ashamed of it, that we're humans, and the first thing that we do is we kind of get a gut feeling about things. And that's what spurns us on to further investigate. Is it the be-all, end-all? You'd have to be a fool.
Sure. Yeah. Humans certainly do have a drive to find the answers, don't we?
Sure.
And we got another question here. Why does emotion matter? When I think this is in the context of when finding truth.
Why does emotion matter? I'll show you. Piss off. There. See, that's why emotion matters. Because you're a human being. Emotion just matters to us.
Sure, but is that not independent of what is true?
Yeah, it is independent of what is true, and it's independent of whatever falsification you can make. Emotion is, I think, one of the last things and the least dependable things. I think even intuition probably is better than how I feel about something.
Sure. I have one last follow-up question. Fast, is that if you could be shown that taking emotion out of this actually is more beneficial to determining the truth, would you re-examine your belief on the emotional aspect?
I think I've already done that. I think I started out that way, and emotion was the last part of it. I mean, that's like saying, you know, the ridiculous Christian demand that you have a relationship and that you love God not knowing God. That's stupid. That's not how it works. How it really works is you develop a relationship, you come to love someone. You don't just walk up to someone in a bar and say, okay, we know each other, let's get married. It don't work that way.
In Vegas, sometimes it does. But, you know.
Maybe in Vegas, but
anyway,
it's probably the only place.
Now, I do have one last question here on our Q&A. I'm going to pop it up here and just read it as is. Then is it reasonable to believe in a God before the mythologies could be there to prove a God? I think is what he meant by that question.
I don't know if people did or not, because I wasn't alive back then. I'm only 52. I suppose there were people who did. But the problem with that is the question makes the assumption that evolution is true, and we invented gods way on down the line after we had time to sit around and talk, and we are the God makers. So I think the question is basically flawed in that it assumes we're the God maker. But in fact, I find the same story all over the planet, even in people separated before there was structured language. And the definition within the stories is so great that you could say the stories are stupid, the stories are wrong, and the stories evolved and they changed over time. But I'd like to know why they changed to the same thing.
I would just argue that they're trying to be as historical accurate as possible. But let me ask you.
No. People separated by geography and time have the same story today.
Yeah, we'll hopefully we can wrap up in on that, because I disagree with that statement. Probably to the fullest degree.
Yeah, I would think you should.
Yeah, because they all can't be true, and they're not all telling the same story.
Yeah, that's your opinion.
Yep, there's not a 9-year-old woman that someone gets married to as a prophet in Christianity, so it's not the same.
What does 9-year-old mean?
You
mean literally 9 years of age? Is that what you think it means?
We'll go based off of the rotation of the Earth around the sun. But anyway, let's go on to the next.
So you mean 9 literal years? It's not talking about innocence.
Well, it says 9 lunar years. We can get more into the definition of that, but we'll go. It's specific. I'll just put it that way.
Well, on that note, that's all the questions that I actually have for you during our segment here. But I really appreciate your concise answers there, Richard. And it's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So wrapping up the show, we will have an after party, and it's been a great conversation. And like I said earlier, when you have differing opinions, it's going to get interesting. And I thought this was fun. Like I enjoy this. I don't feel like anybody was from either side was rude or disrespectful. It's just
I'm gonna press you.
It's a contested it's a contested topic, and we're very passionate about our stance. Richard is very passionate about his. And guess what? Let's just make this a point real quick. As adults, as grown folks, it's okay to fucking disagree and still get along. Okay, 100%. It's okay. It's even okay to get passionate and extremely disagree as fucking grown folks and still get along. And that's the whole point of the roundtable, is we can get as heated as we want and banter back and forth and go back and forth. But guess what? We're still humans, and we still care about each other on a humanistic level, and that's what it's about. You can believe whatever you want to believe, as far-fetched as we think it is, but we still care about you as a human, and we want the best for you as a human. So that being said, I'm going to close it out for this portion of it, and we'll close it out with final thoughts from Atheist Jesus.
Jesus Mike and his final thoughts, yeah.
Oh, that was a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to get an awesome intro, but thank you guys. I appreciate that. So I guess for me, I wanted to kind of just touch on, and I sometimes I'll go into whether it be standards of evidence or different topics towards the end. This one, I wanted to address a topic just simply based on the difference between belief and knowing. This is going to be really simple and really short. Hopefully it draws a picture for some of you guys. Belief is independent of the knowledge. So that said, you can believe something and then have levels of the knowledge to coincide with it. If you're not okay with somebody calling themselves an agnostic atheist, that's fine. Ask them what it is they believe or they don't accept, and that's a better conversation to be had. And with that said, we thank everybody. We thank our guests for coming on, and we love you guys. Be safe. And I'll wait as the producer struggles to find me.